extreme start.
Welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vass. You can find me on X at #Kangas, Instagram #Kangaroos podcast. Tonight, I'll welcome back Frank the Tank Descalzo. Frank, I'm a little bit flat, not about the result, but about the tribunal hearing. We just spoke about this off air, but 3 weeks for Paul Curtis for a football act seems like a really, really harsh decision. We won't go into what this tribunal is doing, what they're thinking, what the AFL is doing and what they're thinking. But this is going to hurt, isn't it? Because of how good he has been and how important he is to our forward line, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. Yeah, it's one of those things where, as we said off air with the MRO, it really is a bit of a chook raffle now at the moment. You know, when someone gets concussed, you don't know what's going to happen. You always prepare for the worst. Unfortunately, we've probably copped the worst. Because he's probably our most informed player. Certainly over the course of the year, you could argue that George Wardlaw's probably been just as important in the 2 weeks that he's been there. But, yeah, this will really, really hurt us. But we hope that they appeal and put up a good fight and that we can see the boy run round on Thursday. But, yeah, certainly you couldn't take out a more influential player for us at the moment.
No, well, there's only two players in the competition that kicked multiple goals each week, and that's Paul Curtis and Jack Higgins. So a big loss.
Yep.
He's been very influential. He's pretty much, even when we've been struggling, he's been the shining light. And, when we were struggling the first quarter on the weekend, Frank, him and Luke Parker probably, steadied the ship a bit, and it could have been a 7 or 8 goal deficit at quarter time, but him and Luke Parker were fantastic. So,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be a results-based decision. I mean, it's a football act. I just don't get this, Frank. This is frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. When you think that had he braced his neck or not suffered a concussion, there's no way that they would have given Paul Curtis a suspension for the possibility of injuring someone. But they've deemed it to be reckless and, excessive force or whatever. And it really just boils down to the fact that Sin, hit his head in a spot that gave him concussion. But there's players that get, hit like that or tackled like that and get straight up. There was one this afternoon in the Geelong Carlton game where Harry Mackay could have suffered the exact same fate. Yet, he sort of braced his neck in a different way. He didn't hit the ground and there'll be nothing made of it. But unfortunately, when there seems now that when there's a concussion, it's almost like if there's a concussion, you've got to prove your innocence.
No, that's right. And I assume the club will appeal this, Frank, but I can't be too confident because, what with Jackson Archer as well, his was a football act as well. It wasn't a dirty act or anything like that got the young fella concussed in the first round of the year. So I can't be too confident that this is going to get overturned. Can you?
No, absolutely, mate. It's the MRO and the tribunal at the moment. It's just, it's like trying to work out what makes your wife happy, Dean. It's just, it's an impossible task trying to work out what the result of the MRO is going to be. So, mate, he could go there and get an extra 2 tacked on. He could be found not guilty. It's just, you have no idea. I just hope that he gets off because we've really enjoyed what he's been able to do. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, look, I've been working on it almost 15 years now, Frank, to try and make my wife happy, and it's I have some good times and some not so good times. So
it's like the MRO.
Exactly right, Frank.
Sometimes you lose. At the moment, we're losing, but maybe if we cook them dinner tomorrow night and make the bed and do the laundry, they'll let him off.
Yeah, well, we can only hope, Frank. But they don't remember the good things we do either, Frank. So sometimes. But anyways, we'll move past that. Let's go back to selection before we go through the game. Now, the club made a statement in dropping 2 key position defenders, Aidan Corr and Griffin Logue. Zach Fisher was out injured with a hamstring. Replaced with Callum Dawson, a key defender, Riley Hardiman, and Jackson Archer came back into the team as well after a suspension/hamstring strain. What do you make of those changes at the time?
I like them, Dean. I sort of thought, mind you, I had the mindset, as we spoke earlier off air, I was preparing for a 10-goal plus loss. So to me, I thought, look, I don't think that Callan Dawson and Riley Hardiman are going to be that big an influence that they're going to impact that. Turns out maybe they were, but at the time I didn't think so. But I think it sends a really good message to the rest of the playing group that it doesn't matter how you came to the club or what the expectation was when you arrived. If you're not delivering, we're happy to play other players in your place. So, and then to the fact that we almost pinched it, I think justified the omissions. And I think it was the right thing to do. And I don't think it's probably going to end there, to be fair. I think there's a few more that might have been tapped on the shoulder saying if you don't perform, that you may be out as well. So I hope they continue down that path and take an effort-based approach to the selections.
Yeah, look, their standards weren't up to scratch. You can definitely say that. Aidan Corr and Griffin Logue, they weren't offering much as far as defensive capabilities or leadership in that regard. They're both very experienced players, Frank, and they were well below par, especially in Good Friday. I mean, you can't always put the fault on them, and it sort of sent a little bit of a mixed message saying, well, it's probably the defenders' fault that we got smashed last week. But we've been talking about it all year, Frank, that the back line needed a bit of a rejig, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I just don't think the effort was there, as you said. Every week we'd look at the tackles inside defensive 50, and we just see that it just the effort didn't seem to be there, or the desperation didn't seem to be there. So you give it to a couple of young guys that maybe could be fighting for their spot on the list at the end of the year, and at least you'll get effort. And I think that's what we got. How much of that effort on the weekend contributed to the margin? Well, you could make a strong argument that I honestly didn't think Callan Dawson did much wrong. I thought Riley Hardiman was good. There's things he's got to work on, but I think he definitely plays within his limitations. He defends hard. He gets the ball. He's a nice kick. And Jackson Archer, we know, is a great lockdown backman. So maybe that was the balance that we needed was, more effort opposed to what we were getting.
A bit more mobility on the ground as well. So, when the ball hits the ground, we sort of seem to be a bit slow, whereas these blokes have, Callan Dawson's, got a little bit of pace. He was matched up on Mitch Georgiades, who's a very crafty forward, but they've got a bit of a small forward line too. So it was probably the game to make those changes where you could drop a couple of key backs and just play one or two key defenders, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I was happy with it. I was really happy with the result and the way they defended, but I was also very happy that they weren't afraid to drop a few senior names in hopefully an effort to inspire the other guys that are just treading water to have more of an impact.
No, definitely. And some of those blokes have got long-term contracts and are probably feeling a bit comfortable with how they're going. So, fair enough. Overall, we'll go to the game now. What do you think of the performance?
Look, I thought at quarter time, Dean, that it was probably going to head down the path that I was thinking it was going to head. It was going to be same. It didn't really look like the effort was there. But then, it started to turn a little bit. We certainly started. I felt that our pressure increased, or maybe Port's pressure decreased. But we certainly started to win a lot of the contested ball, I felt, sort of from quarter time onwards. We started to almost, at patches, control the game as far as clearances went. We weren't able to finish it. There were some poor turnovers, some missed shots at goal. But I thought it became the classic arm wrestle after quarter time. And I think taking into who the club was we were playing, it was away from home. I thought when Port responded, there was opportunities there for us to pack up and just get run over. But we continued to fight back and kick goals, which was a good sign.
Yeah, look, definitely better than probably the last month. So we can't complain with that. But I just felt like it was a missed opportunity. Port were terrible and we're overrunning them in the last quarter and they looked shot. And when they get past this of accepting, the effort was a lot better, we need to start winning these games. And that's what hurts, Frank. There was a real chance to win this one, and we didn't take it. I mean, we could have gone either way, but these are the types of games. If you want to take that next step and progress and mature, we got a lot of mature recruits into the club to win games like this. I just felt like we had the opportunity and we just blew it a little bit. Am I being a bit too harsh, Frank?
No, dude, and I think the worst thing is that this is like what we've done now is my fear is that this ends up being like breaking up with an ex, Dean, where they've shown all the effort and we'll go into Thursday with a new sense of belief and hope, and we'll get destroyed. And this is where we've been at this spot, I reckon, half a dozen times over the last 18 months, where we get that burst of improvement and we get pats on the back from the media and neutrals that go, if they bring that effort next week, they'll win. But we never bring that effort next week. It's almost like a good effort that we showed on the weekend sustains us for 3 weeks, and we have a slide. And then all of a sudden, in a month's time, we find that energy and the effort to almost win another game. So I'm all for what they did. What I want to see is it replicated not only next Thursday night, but the week after and the week after.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more with that. And I don't want to hear excuses next week if we do struggle that we only had a 5-day break. There's been plenty of teams that have come with 5-day breaks and they've performed quite well. So, it's important that we back it up. But we'll talk more about who's coming up next week later, a little bit later. Now, backline. Now, we talked about it, a completely new backline. Conceded 7 goals in the first quarter, and we were thinking, oh, my God, here we go again, Frank. But only 7 more for the rest of the game. I mean, we talked about it. They look more versatile and were able to rebound the ball a little bit better this week. It just looked, more settled, a bit more quicker along the grounds. There's the odd skill error that still happens there, but it just looked a lot better this week, Frank.
Yeah, a lot more mobile. It might have taken,
mobile. That's the word I was looking for.
Maybe the first quarter was settling in with effectively half your backline changed, so it was kind of settling in. I think the midfield probably started to apply a bit more pressure, so the ball was coming down not as easily as it was in the first quarter. But I was very happy with the backline and what they managed to do. Again, first quarter not great, but they knuckled down. They defended very well. Even the ones that Georgiadis. His shots, a lot of them were out wide, where if you're going to, as a defender, if you're going to give up a mark, that's where you want to give it up. And he was good enough to kick those goals. But I think we did. Look, I'd be shocked if anyone got dropped out of that back line for Thursday night.
No, definitely. Callum Dawson playing on Mitch Georgiadis. And like you said, he forced him out wide. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good set shot from the pocket. He hit one that came off the post. Yeah, and one that went through as well. So, I mean, that's all you can do. He had plenty of space to work in, and if the pressure's not going on up the field, then you're not going to be able to stop anyone. So, and the best thing you did was force him out wide. You keep the goals, and you cop that. That's all you can do at the end of the day. What do you make of Charlie Comyn? He played more of a lockdown role this week on Ollie Lord. No intercepts for the game, or no intercept marks. Is that the way we go now, where I suppose we've tried to play him as the intercept player there for a few weeks, and he's been a bit up and down with that role. But, I thought he did a good job on Ollie Lord.
I think maybe Dean, they're just stripping it back to basics, and it might be just follow your opponent and stop him getting the ball, because I think, like most of our back line, they'd be fairly low on confidence at the moment, having given up the scores that they've given up over the last month. It wouldn't surprise me if they just sort of went, let's just go one-on-one and be responsible for your opponent, and we'll work on it from there once we start to maybe win games, hopefully, and being able to control tempo and stuff like that. Maybe you start to, fiddle with a loose player or something like that. But I think he played the role really well.
Yeah, I think you summed up really well there, sort of saying they went back to basics, just playing one-on-one instead of trying to find a player that's we can play off and intercept or something like that, or play loose in the back line. It was just one-on-one football, which is what I liked as well. Now, Riley Hardiman came in for his first full game of the year, Frank, 12 possessions, 368 metres gained, 3 scoring involvements. We need to persist with this kid. He looks like he's going to be a real player, Yeah,
I agree. I couldn't believe that he, after what was it, the the Swans game, I think, where he came on in that last quarter and picked up 12 disposals. I was shocked that he was made sub again, I think, the following week.
And then dropped.
Or he might have been dropped even, which,
Yeah.
he's probably physically not quite there yet, though he's got a pretty decent build on him. I think he's still a little bit weak in the tackles. You know, he does get the odd tackle broken and stuff like that, but I think he hunts the man and his opponent really well. He spoils, you know, what I love about defenders is guys whose first instinct is to spoil. He doesn't try to go for the mark. He tries to spoil, and then when it hits the ground, he tries to recover. And when he gets it, there's no balking or sidestepping or U-turns. He gets on his bike and he kicks it long to advantage. So there's a lot I like about him, and I didn't want him to be dropped after the Swans game, and I certainly don't want to see him drop at this point.
No, definitely not. Like you said, he's almost the old-fashioned defender. Very good one-on-one. He'll come across and help your teammates out. Good use of a football too. Can kick a ball a long way. He's got a good left foot. So he's pretty much, he should be getting a game every week because Alistair Clarkson loves left footers. So, something to work with. And he just needs to be given confidence to play every week, especially if he's going to play like that. Harry Sheezel off half back again, 30 touches, 604 metres gained, only one scoring involvement, 7 turnovers, 5 intercepts, a little bit up and down. Is this his foreseeable future for now, going back to half back?
He seems more settled there, Dean, doesn't he? He's
more consistent.
I don't know whether it's the way we've been playing the last few weeks that's unsettled him, but he seems to have lost, you know, that ability to create. He's almost he's been very cautious with his disposal. So I don't know, maybe with a game in front of him, he can see a bit more. But look, I don't sense that we lose a lot in the midfield at the moment if he's not there. If he's feeling more comfortable and he's able to create a bit more off half back, I'm happy for him to stay there unless, you know, we need to change something up on match day or for a quarter and you roll him through the middle a bit or something like that. But I think he looks more settled there, more confident. I'd stick with it for now.
Yeah, look, at the moment, I don't like, I don't think you can play Harry Sheezel and LDU in the same midfield, in the same centre bounce. They're just a bit too, you know, like outside-ish. I think we had, we'll certainly talk about the midfield very soon. But if you got both of them in there, you don't have a ball hunter. Like, especially if you got Powell in there, it does. You know, they're both very offensive players, very outside players. They need someone else in there going in and getting the ball, and then they feed him out. But it's very hard with two of them. I think LDU is the natural midfielder, so he stays there. So it means Harry Sheezel probably goes back to half back. And I don't mind it, Frank. He does look more settled there. It does look more natural for him. And, you know, things can change. Second half of the year, I'm not too sure. They may look at it differently and may push him back to half forward. But at the moment, I didn't mind that. And, good to have Jackson Archer back there as well, Frank. Good lockdown defender. It just felt a bit more balanced because we were able to use Caleb Daniel on the offensive side a lot better as well. He sort of looked a lot better with more lockdown defenders, one-on-one defenders around him, and he was able to probably go to the weaker forward.
I agree, and particularly on your point that you mentioned there in the midfield with Sheezel, Powell, and LDU. They seem to be. I've watched them closely this year, and they tend to, once the ball's bounced, they hunt the ball, and they lose all their defensive mindedness, sort of thing. And we get caught so many times when they get drawn to the ball spits out, and then the opposition have got two midfielders on their own. So I think having one of them in there and then having a bit more defensively minded midfielders like a Parker or a George Wardlaw, something like that, is a bit more of a better balance that I prefer. So, I completely agree with that. I think that could be something that they look for to do more regularly.
I certainly hope so, especially those first three quarters, probably second and third quarter. I felt like it really dominated the midfield and in the contest particularly. Now, it felt like the game against the D's for that second and third quarter, while I'm on that, Luke Parker in his 300th game had 27 possessions, 4 tackles, 1 goal and 5 scoring involvements. He was almost playing a lone hand early when it looked like it was going to blow out. Outstanding 300th game from the veteran, wasn't it?
If I knew nothing about the game, Dean, and you took me there, I would have said he's clearly the captain of the side.
Yeah.
That's how he played. He looked like the captain of the side. He willed himself into contests. He kicked goals against the Tide. You can see that he's played in a lot of high pressure football throughout his career. The way he went about it.
It's just unfortunate we've got him when he's 32. It would have been nice even 29, 30 years old, wouldn't it, Frank? Like just to get 3 or 4 years of this guy, because that's when our next tier is going to come up and he's probably going to pass on. Not pass on as in life, but he's going to pass on football. Like he's going to be 30. Yeah, he's probably got 1 or 2 years left of, where he's got this capability, and then after that he probably retires. So it's just a bit unfortunate he's not a couple of years younger, isn't it, Frank?
Yeah, when you said that he might pass on, mate, playing in the North midfield does. Let's hope not. But yeah, look, I mean, who knows, dude? Maybe we dangled that carrot a few years ago, and you could understand why someone at 27, 28 wouldn't have come to North 3 years ago, especially when you're playing at the Swans. So who knows? Maybe they've been trying to get him for a little while, but you could just see his determination, his class. Look, he really had just that captaincy vibe to him, and he's done it a couple of times this year, where I've really sort of you can almost know who it is without even seeing the number on the back, just by what he's done or the effort that he's put in. So yeah, would have loved to have had him 3-4 years ago. Let's hope that the time he's got with us, he influences the young fellas and that they take that on board.
I hope, in the next year or two, we can certainly get him to a finals game. And, we can, finish his career on a high instead of being the team that we've been probably the last 5 years, because I don't think he deserves that on his overall career. He's almost a true shin boner in the way he plays. LDU, and he looked like he almost was going to take over, Frank. He's been frustrating all year. 25 touches, 11 clearances. Did some great work around the stoppages like only he can. I like him with Parker and Wardlaw and even Simpkin rotating through there. He needs some big bodies in there to feed him the ball out to him. It was a better mix for him this week, I felt like, Frank, and it got the best out of LDU, almost.
Yeah, I think he's still there's still an element of some of the stuff he does in the game, which makes me think he must have been such a dominant junior in his under 15 that he thinks tackles won't stick, or that he's got more time than what he has. And sometimes, I know we all hate it when someone just bombs the ball forward and doesn't have a look, but I think sometimes with him you'd almost take that rather than him trying to do too much. And there was a couple of times on the weekend where you just felt the opportunity was there to release the ball or to go that first option, and he sort of just dwells on it.
Hesitates.
He hesitates and invites pressure. But look, his good definitely outweighs his bad. There's no doubt about that. But he can be frustrating to watch sometimes when, particularly when it's a close game like that. You just think, if he had just done this or he had just done that. But maybe as the midfield improves and whatnot, he can start to find a bit more time and space and start to really influence the game.
Yeah, I'm hoping next Thursday he can be that guy that gets 30 touches, kicks 3 goals, and sets up about 8 score involvements. But I don't think he's far away from playing a match-winning game. He's not far away. He's almost there. Now, George Wardlaw, and if I've ever seen a more shin-boner player, Frank, then this guy is it. He's almost as important as anyone in this team. He's given the midfield some real grunt injection in there. 20 touches, 6 tackles, 4 scoring involvements, 7 inside 50s as well. Outstanding goal. What I loved was when he kicked that goal, he didn't celebrate and go over the top like every other player in the competition seems to do. Just high-fived a few players and went back to the centre. We just have to keep him healthy, Frank, don't we?
Yeah, that's what I particularly, when I saw him kick the goal, I thought that was crazy when I saw it live. And then they cut to him, and I thought, oh, I've never actually seen what George is like at a moment like that. And he was just so humble. He just sort of turned around, jogged back, and it was like, look, the job's not done. So there's no point getting carried away. And that's what I really loved about him, was that he was just sort of almost thinking about the next centre bounce before the goal had even been signalled. So, look, I mean, who doesn't love him? He looks to be already an elite player amongst our guys, and if he could stay fit and get another 50 games under the belt, well, he could really be anything for us. So, let's hope he stays fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real barometer. I mean, we even seen that for little patches against Carlton last week in his first game back. I mean, there's a lot of people in the crowd sort of saying, at least he's out there giving a shit and, really putting everything on the line. So, yeah, and that's what I love about him.
I think we touched on it, Dean, last week, that it was a bit of an indictment on our midfield that he came out for his first game and he just looked at a different level to the rest of our midfield in his effort and his defensive pursuits. You sort of think, you could tell that he sort of think like, mate, this guy, it must be a seasoned veteran. And he was playing his first game. So you sort of think, God, imagine if the rest of the midfield could take a leaf out of George Wardlaw's book and attack the ball like that, how much better we'd be. So hopefully he starts to, influence some of the other boys.
Yeah, I love him and Luke Parker in that centre bounce, to be honest with you. They seem to work off each other really well. And, I mean, the clearances are going.
I was going to say, just on that, I mean, this is completely off the topic, sort of, but is it time that we ran Paul Curtis through the middle for something different? Another guy that's physically very strong, and could he offer more to us other than just, half forward?
It's an interesting discussion. We probably can't for the next few weeks, Frank, because he's not playing.
Yes.
Look, I mean, there was even talk about Cameron Zurhaar. If he's out of form a little bit, maybe throw him in the centre square. I mean, we tried that in his Clarko's first couple of years, and we've completely gone away from that because he adds a bit of grunt and he adds a bit of toughness on it. So I don't mind throwing something a little bit different. We did try Paul Curtis out there, but maybe, I don't know, this is what I'm thinking, Frank. We've just got too many midfielders as it is, so they've just sort of said, we'll just stay in forward line, you boys.
Yeah, I think, but like you touched on before, that whole balance thing, where sometimes maybe a bigger body or someone that makes the other midfielders walk a bit taller because of their physicality. You sort of think of Zurhaar, a Curtis, just every now and then, maybe one centre square attendance a quarter, just to have that physical element. But it's something I wouldn't mind seeing him try a bit more often. But, certainly need a different balance to help out Parker and Wardlaw, who obviously can't stay there all the time. I wonder whether it'd be worth trying a bigger body in there to support, the Tom Powells and the Harry Sheasels when they're in there.
Look, it's certainly a discussion. I mean, just going through the CBAs now, LDU had 25, Luke Parker 22, Tristan Sherry 28, Jack Darling had a few, Wardlaw 17, Simpkins 17, Powell 12. It seems to be that probably be how they go next week as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's probably a couple of players that could easily go in there. Finn O'Sullivan's probably one we haven't tried through there either. So, look, there's certainly options. We've drafted midfielders over the last few years, Frank. They're all been top picks. So, and one of them is Will Phillips, who can't get a game at the moment. But that's another topic that we can discuss a little bit later. Now, Tristan Sherry was back to his best as well. Probably our best player. Gave the midfield first use. 23 touches, 39 hitouts, including 14 to advantage compared to his opponent who had 3 to advantage. 7 clearances himself, 6 scoring involvements, team high. He's so important to that midfield. And if he gets beaten or even breaks even, we seem to struggle. We've seen it in the first quarter of Good Friday last week, Frank, where he got outdone by De Koning and we fell apart pretty quickly. So he's very important, isn't he?
Oh, he's so important to us. And you're right. I think you mentioned there, even breaking even. I think that's what he began to do on Good Friday after quarter time, because I thought he was clearly beaten by De Koning in the first quarter. And then I think he sort of stripped it back a little bit and sort of went, instead of trying to dominate the guy, maybe I'll just try and sort of break even and make it a 50-50. And he sort of really worked his guts out for, I guess not much result in the end as far as scoreboard goes. But then I thought he followed up again on the weekend and got back to that real sort of grind of if he doesn't win the hit out, he followed up. He was a real bull in there. And I mean, I think we've said it before. He's almost like another midfielder for us. He's not a Simon Madden classic tap ruckman or anything like that. I think he sees ball, gets ball, and when he sort of returned to that form on the weekend, I don't think it was any coincidence that we looked much, much better.
I'm really looking forward to his matchup against Goldstein on Thursday night. That'll be a good one. Just to see if he's passed on the torch properly. So, yeah, look, Goldstein was okay the other day. He was battling hard. So, for a 37-year-old, they've only got one ruckman, Frank, so they have to play him. And he has to play the whole year, which is going to be a big ask for Goldie. But, yeah, good luck to him. Forward line and Paul Curtis, another 3 goals. This kid has been unbelievable this year. I don't think we have talked about him enough, have we? He should be right up there for All-Australian status right now, or at least in the mix for the BNF as well.
Yeah, I think he would be, Dean. I think people would have noticed him. Unfortunately, he's playing in a forward line that probably doesn't see its line there of the ball. So you imagine if he was at Geelong or Brisbane, where the ball was brought in far more regularly and in a cleaner manner, what kind of player we might be looking at. But look, it's great. He's really worked his guts out. I've read somewhere that he undertook a personal fitness campaign to try and get aerobically much fitter than what he previously sort of been training to the ability or to the level of a half forward. But he tried to sort of push to the level of a midfielder to try and get that aerobic capacity to get up and down the ground. We saw him, I think he took a mark.
Yeah, in the defensive 50.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's clearly sort of worked on his endurance and his engine. And I think the benefits of that is that he's getting up and down to more contests. He's been a revelation. We hope to continue this Thursday. But, I think as far as all Australian status and that, I think he's in the conversations. I've seen a lot of good commentary about him from neutrals, and if he continues on this path, I think he'll certainly be in the squad. Whether he makes the team, well, look, there's a lot of talented half forwards out there, so we'll have to wait and see.
Look, it's going to be hard because you're in a poor team. Generally, when you're in a poor team, they do get overlooked. But yeah, look. Fantastic season from him so far, and probably right up there with their best BNF right now anyway, only a few rounds in, but can't complain what he's doing. Can bench a fair bit too, so which is quite handy because he's quite strong, isn't he? Like, he breaks a lot of tackles with his fend-offs.
I think that's the is it Fijian or Tongan? I think he's half Tongan.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It helps.
Yeah, he probably drives one of those big Taragos.
Well, he's got a kid now, hasn't he? He's got a little baby, good on him.
Superhuman strength that a lot of those Islanders have. But, he's apparently, from all reports, incredibly strong. And you can see already he rarely gets pushed out of contests or gets outmarked. So I imagine he'd be like, sort of made out of cement. Look, that's obviously helped him a lot too in these one-on-one battles. So, it's been great.
No, definitely a shining light, even when we were getting smashed after those few weeks. Nick Larkey didn't have his kicking boots on, did he? Ever since he did that snap last week against the Blues, he's almost had the yips. Any concerns there, Frank, that he's starting to lose it a bit?
No, I think he's still getting to the ball. But you're right. He's obviously talked himself out of a couple of goals for no apparent reason. So whether he's got little Nick Larkey on his shoulder going, you're going to miss. I don't know, but he's been, sort of uncharacteristically poor with his kicking lately. But I think, it's one of those things that can change in 15 minutes of footy if he kicks a couple early next week, gets his confidence up. I think he's away. I think I wouldn't be changing his routine. I wouldn't want him to start, sideways kicking goals, because he's lost that. He's got the yips for a couple of weeks. Just stick to his routine, I think it'll turn.
Yeah, it's sometimes like when you're playing golf and you're missing putts that are short and that you usually get. You just stick with the routine, and eventually it will turn. So yeah, I mean there was talk on the commentary. I think Sean Burgon was saying, well, he's not kicking through the ball, and I can't remember Dermot Burton or someone else was saying, well, that's how he kicks, and he's kicked pretty accurate. I might have been Tunstall actually. That's sort of saying that's how he kicks, and he's been kicking goals all his life, so he's not going to change it now. There's no point changing it. So yeah. Just don't try any snaps when you're 10, 15 metres. I can't believe, Frank, at this day and age, the amount of players, they're 15, 20 metres out, and they want to kick the ball always around the corner. They don't want to run straight at goal. Well, what's the reasoning behind that? I don't understand it.
I think it must feel more comfortable on the foot. You know, you're hitting the belly of the ball. You've got more surface area. But, I mean, we saw, was it
Georgiades?
Yeah. I mean, you can still horribly miskick it.
I think there's more room for error.
Yeah, I think that there probably is. But I noticed today that Mackay's gone back to, drop punts from an angle. He was, sort of doing the straight shot at goal. So I think it must be a bit to do with confidence and that. But look, I hope he doesn't go down that path. I think stick to the basic stuff. Leave that to maybe players that have been around a bit longer or in sides that are travelling a bit better.
Yeah, I remember Joe Danaher when he was at Essendon did it years ago because he was struggling to kick straight. So he just sort of started going, I'm just going to snap it around the corner. And then every player seemed to start doing it. Harry Mackay, like he said. There's been a few others, even Jeremy Cameron today. I know Mason Wood, 20 metres out the other day, took one out on a slight angle, decided to do a snap and missed it. So, and he's a beautiful kick too, Mason Wood. I don't understand this.
It's quite crazy.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating to watch these players are taking shortcuts like that. But, anyways, speaking of shortcuts, look, let's talk about this guy. I mean, seriously, it's not the fact that he didn't have a touch, Frank, in 3 quarters, but it's more the fact that he was nowhere near him when he got the ball, talking about Connor Rozee. It wasn't on his shoulder. It was playing off him. How many more chances can you give a guy before you say your standards are up to it? Can you go back to the twos and find some sort of form? It was right up there with one of the worst games I've ever seen from an AFL footballer, Frank.
Oh, mate, they cannot possibly justify his selection next week. I would hate to think what kind of message that would send to the guys trying to break into the side that not only do you not touch the ball in 97 minutes of football, but your opponent's close to best on ground off a half-back flank, no less. So it's just unfathomable. As my eldest boy said, you could have probably stood him in one spot for 97 minutes and the ball would have hit him. It's almost harder to not touch the ball in 97 minutes than it is to get it. So it's beyond me. If he gets selected again this week, they've just got to make a statement, and like they did with Logue and Core, and just say that's just not acceptable.
No, it definitely isn't. I mean, what do you think this forward line needs? Do you think we need another small forward to add a little bit of pressure? Or do you think we need maybe another key forward or another hybrid forward like a Zane Duursma? I think Costanti did some good pressure, had 29 pressure points. Paul Curtis had 38 pressure points, according to Champion Data. I mean, Duursma had an impact and had more touches than Darcy Tucker in 5 seconds than he had all game. Not to harp about that. Or what do you think we need as far as help with Nick Larkey or even Jack Darling? Or do you like this setup at the moment?
Look, obviously, you'd love a genuine small forward like a Tom Papley or even Nick Watson, that type of real sort of fast, creative guys who can turn a half chance into a goal. I still think, but with that pressure element as well, I think would be ideal. But I don't think that the forward line, there's still enough guys there that aren't probably shooting the lights out that we can afford to try a Duursma, try Geordie Payne, maybe a Cooper Harvey. Honestly, if you're going to bring in a defensive forward to mind someone, I would prefer Will Phillips, because at least you'll get that defensive element out of him. He may not kick 3 goals off the half-forward flank, but at least you know he'll try and be accountable for his opponent. So if you're going to surrender a forward to try and shut someone like a Zach Merritt out, then I'd rather do it with Will Phillips than Darcy Tucker. So I still think that there's an element there to experiment.
No, fair enough. I think you could even play Costanti in that role too. Like he's pretty quick, and I think he went on Rosie last quarter. I'm not too sure if he completely went on. Costanti's a player that doesn't get many possessions per game anyway. He usually gets about 6 to 8. Tries to put pressure on as best as he can. So, that's up for discussion. Look, I'd like to see Geordie Payne, but Cooper Harvey, if he's out of contract, I'd like to see him given a go, actually, to be honest with you, and just to see what he's got over the next few weeks. If he's not up to it, well, so you gave him a chance. If he's not up to it, you move on. So, that's what I'd like to see, but whether that happens, I'm not too sure. And, look, the forward line's probably been the least of our issues, to be honest with you, Frank, even though we haven't been kicking big scores. Generally, if you can get the ball down to them with a little bit of purpose and pace, they will put a score on for you.
I think that's the element there, Dean, that with only one genuine key marking forward, I think it's imperative we move the ball with purpose out of that half back line. But trying to slice through a zone with 30-metre kicks at a slow tempo just destroys our forward line because, as we saw again even on the weekend, there was a couple of 3-on-1s with Nick Larkey where it was obvious of where we were going with the long kick. So that makes it very, very difficult for him. But when we move the ball quickly and with purpose, and even when we win a centre clearance, we look far more likely to score than we don't when we go inside 50. Because it's still, a 6-on-6. The zone hasn't had a chance to sort of have numbers back in to support it. And we look likely to score. But in general field play, when we don't move the ball fast, the forward line looks very stale.
No, definitely. We've probably seen in the first quarter last week. I know Zerha and Darling didn't get a touch, but if you don't give them the chances, they're not going to touch it, that's for sure. So, whereas if you do give them that opportunities like we did from second, third, and even last quarters, they do take the chances and they kick goals and they will put scoreboard pressure on. Andrew has come into the chat. Larkey bottled his chances. Power forgot to pack his composure. Common solid when given a defensive role. So thanks for coming in, Andrew, there. Now, a couple other players I will mention before we move on. Jai Simpkin, he has come in for some criticism the last couple of weeks. His form has dipped, which has coincided with the team's form the last 3 weeks. 17 CBAs with 5 clearances, 5 scoring moments, a goal assist, and absolutely suck it in Jason Horne-Francis to give away a free kick and a goal to LDU. That was a really smart play. But 8 turnovers as well. Butchered it last week as well. Where do you sit with him? He's coming in for a lot of criticism from supporters.
Look, I don't think if you didn't know that Jai Simpkin turns over the footy, you haven't been watching too much. Nor, unfortunately, that's what he brings. You would never do it in the mid-season, Dean. But I wonder whether the responsibility of captaincy, it's almost like he's spinning his wheels a bit. He's trying too hard, and he's biting off kicks that are a little bit too hard, almost because he feels like he's got to create something every time he gets the ball. And I'd wonder what kind of a player he might be for us without that responsibility, because we saw him in the All Stars game. He just went about his business. Yeah. And racked up getting the ball. But I just wonder whether the captaincy sits well with him or not. But, again, does a lot of good work, but undoes a lot of it with poor disposal. And that's, unfortunately, the cross I think Guy's going to carry throughout his career, is that he's not a reliable kick.
Look, he's not going to get dropped or anything like that. I mean, we have to get past that. And he doesn't deserve to get dropped. He tries his absolute heart out. Like you said, if you haven't seen him butcher the ball, then you probably haven't been watching this close enough over the course of the year. I do like him in the midfield. He does add a bit more grunt with Parker Wardlaw. He does give it a bit more balance in that regard. He does get clearances in the midfield as well. They're a bit of hack kicks and so forth, but they're still clearances at the end of the day. So I don't mind his role, but a lot of people seem to like him as that small forward, high half forward type of role. Where do you sit? Where do you see his long-term or even short-term future playing in the team?
I think I prefer him probably midfield. I think I would, again, I'd be prepared to accept him to just get the ball and pump it into the forward 50 as much as he can. I think sometimes he overdoes what he's trying to do in creating an overlap, or gets a bit cutesy with his handballs or his kicks. Again, sort of strip it down, maybe give him a role to bring his confidence up for a couple of weeks. But I think I prefer him in the midfield. And if you have to rest him at half forward, that's fine. But predominantly, I think he does his best work in those centre clearances and throughout the midfield.
Yeah, look, I think he's best. Yeah, we've always tried that. We've always tried to push him out of the midfield in the early parts of the year, and then when things turn to shit, we always put him back in. Now we've tried that last few years, so I think his best role is in the middle, leading the engine room. Colby McKercher as well played on the wing, and I think he found a little bit of form after kicking that goal in the second quarter. 18 touches, 9 contested. He's never going to be a contested player who gets in like Luke Parker, but he did show some signs. Only 32% disposal efficiency, though, Frank. That's surprising.
Yeah, that's very poor. I did notice that as well, that his disposal efficiency was very poor. I think, again, Dean, a lightly framed guy, probably gets exposed against bigger bodies at the moment because he hasn't had that chance to sort of fill out and put some muscle on the frame. But I'd persist with him. I think whether it's even as a sub, I think the more senior football he gets exposed to, the better long-term he'll be for us. But you got to accept that he's probably still a little undersized. And then you put him down there with Caleb Daniel, and you've got two guys that probably physically aren't capable of doing that sort of heavy work. But I guess the disappointing thing is that he was drafted as a renowned, left footer with immaculate skills, and I guess like a lot of guys in our team at the moment, they seem to have lost that confidence in their disposal. But hopefully that comes back.
No, and he's at a vulnerable age too, where he's only 19, 20. You can lose confidence quite quickly. You can lose belief quite quickly. Dropping him to the twos, I don't know if it's going to help his game. I'm not too sure where he can just find the ball. Maybe it does. But, look, I thought there was little signs last week where he's trying to take the game on still, which is a good sign because that's what he needs to do. Because he's got the pace, he's got the outside class. So he's got to keep doing that and not, just like did a couple of things where he hack kicked it, he had a snapshot and goal where he just had it. If he had a bit more composure, he would have settled himself and probably kicked a goal there in the last quarter, which hurt a little bit. But look, there's little green shoots.
Yeah, and I think the thing, particularly with a lot of left footers, is he doesn't like getting caught on his right side. Oh. He tends to panic a bit when he's got to go down onto the right, and he sometimes goes inboard when that isn't the right option, but it's to get on his left. But that's left footers. Having been one myself, Dean, I know you always sell your footy boots as in the right boot never used. I think there's a little bit of that with him as well. Probably coming out of the junior ranks with his speed, he was able to do that and pivot and get back onto his left, and he's been caught out a few times. But with experience, hopefully he works that out.
No, look, and even if he has to banana kick it on his left foot when he's running that straight line, it's better than some of the things he's trying to do where he stops and tries to go back inboard. Everyone knows he's a left footer; they're not going to fall for it. So, little things you've got to work on, but there are green shoots there with him. Just before I finish, Defensive Player of the Week, Frank, I've gone for George Wardlaw this week. I thought he was outstanding with his pressure. Have you got someone different?
No, I think George has been outstanding for his defensive efforts and just his efforts in the middle, his defensive pursuits. He's been immense. If we could have 18 of him out on the ground, I think we'd be having a different conversation tonight. But let's just try and get the one that we have got right and find a couple of others.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, look, he was fantastic. Moving forward to Essendon on Thursday night football. You happy to finally play a Thursday night game? It's been a number of years, Frank.
I can't remember the last one, to be honest.
Yeah, someone did tell me a while ago. It might have been you. I'm not even too sure, but I cannot remember for the life of me us ever playing a Thursday night game.
Geez, yeah, it has been a while. Look, looking forward to it. As we said before, Dean, I don't want to. It's the hope that kills you, Dean. You know, all indicators would suggest we should have a real crack, and this game should be live deep into time on in the last quarter. But unfortunately, we've done this a few times over the last 18 months. We seem to find this great effort against, we swim against the tide, and then we get one that you sort of think, this we could do well here, and we just don't show up. So that's my fear. Dean, is once again we're in the public eye. We've had some pats on the back for our effort. Who turns up on Thursday night?
No, that's right. I'm going to guess you're going to name one player that's going to be out of the team, but anyone else you think that probably needs to come out of the team that's a bit down in form or anything like that, and maybe any reserves players that you'd like to see come in or anything?
Well, I think it'll be tough, Dean, this week because the reserves didn't play. So,
yeah, frustrating.
It's going to be tough. Look, obviously, Darcy Tucker, I think, will come out. That's a no-brainer. Who comes in? Whether it's Bailey Scott, whether they go with a Geordie Payne, I don't know. The other guy I think, Dean, that is worth just keeping an eye on is, to me, I think Jack Darling's he's not flying at the moment. We're pushing him into the ruck. I don't think that's his role. He's not contributing a hell of a lot up forward. And Bryn Teakle has been playing okay in the twos. I think the last couple of weeks he's had 20 disposals. He's kicked a few goals. I wonder whether maybe they've pre-planned that Darling gets a rest at some point in the year just to recharge the body. So that's another guy I would think might be worth having a look at. Finn Barr, obviously, as well, but I think Bryn's form's probably been a bit better in the twos. So other than the one that obviously we all think is going to happen, the only other one is I'm not sure that Jack Darling going into the ruck does much for our forward line balance or our midfield balance. I think it's more of a Sherry needs a rest rather than let's switch things up by putting Darling in there.
Could you play all three of them in the same forward line, Teakle, Darling, Larkey, or is it too immobile, you think?
Well, that's what I think, Dean. Are we just too top heavy with Teakle and Darling, Sherry, Larkey? So I don't know. I think most clubs now are moving to that pinch hitting ruckman, but I just think Teakle at the moment might offer a bit more of a ruck option. I think Darling's probably still the better forward. But Darling isn't exactly flying at the moment, and I wonder whether that's a bit of fatigue because we've had a lot of travel in the first part of the year. He's not getting any younger. Is it worth giving him a rest for a week and trying that combination, particularly against Essendon, who are going to go in with far more undersized than what they normally would be?
No, exactly right. And Zane Duursma, do you want him to play a full game this week?
I think I'd still go with Zane Duursma as a starting one. I think Dylan Stevens or even Colby McKercher maybe as a sub would probably make a bit more sense in that they bring that extra run that you might need late in the game. At Duursma, look, I mean, I know there's a lot of knocks on Duursma about this and is he defensively minded? I think the one thing he does clearly have is his ability to read the ball in flight is exceptional. He seems to know to grab the ball at its highest point, and he looks like a natural forward. So I would like to see him get a full game to see what he could do. But that's probably without the reserves playing, I think the only real changes I would make is maybe a different sub. whether they try and expose Essendon with just the one ruckman.
Yeah, obviously Darcy Tucker, you probably have to think would come out. So yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah, what approach they'll go. They'll obviously, not make the decision.
Just on that, Dean, I think if Tucker does go out, as we touched on before, I could see the opportunity to bring a Will Phillips in as a defensive mid and give him a job, and say tag a Zach Merritt or something like that, and see how that goes.
Yeah, look, I don't mind that idea. It'd be interesting. Maybe even put him as a sub, Will Phillips, and you can sort of, if Merritt's getting on top of us in the first half, then you can sort of go down that track in the second half. So yeah, look, I don't mind that idea, Frank. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see which way they go. It's been interesting that Will Phillips hasn't even been an emergency the last few weeks. He has not been even close to the team at the moment. I know a lot of people are calling for him to come into the team, but at the moment, he might be done, Frank. I'm not too sure. So,
well, I mean, I think it's more. I think it's more. The investment we made in him with the pick that we took. I think if he was picked 74, nobody would care.
No, that's right.
And they just sort of, look, he's just not up to it. But it's the fact that he was a first-round pick, an early pick. I think supporters want to be absolutely certain that he can't offer anything at senior level before we dispatch him, because he's on a one-year contract. He barely made it. He was probably one of the third or fourth last that made it onto the list last year. So you think at the rate he's going now, he's not going to get another contract. So, but like a lot of supporters, I just want to double and triple stamp his papers and make sure he's absolutely offers nothing as a senior footballer than what we want before we cast him free. So, yeah, I think he did a great job last year when he ran with Nick Dacos. He's obviously, got that ability. Whether they decide to use that this week, I guess, we'd have to wait and see.
Well, and William Moss' record has been terrible. Well, with him in the side, it's been a lot better. So it's been interesting that it's sort of gone away from him. They only game the first few weeks, and he's a bit indifferent with his form. But yeah, we'll see how we go. What's your prediction for Thursday? You think we can get that win against the Bombers?
Dean, did I say that it's a bit like breaking up with a girlfriend?
Yeah.
It's they cheat.
The hope that kills you.
Yeah, and then a week later they go, no, I made a terrible mistake. Let's get back together. And you get back together and you go, this is great. And then the next week they cheat on you again. You go, what am I doing here? That's what I feel at the moment. I've made up with the footy club about 3 times this year and gone, no, this is it. We've turned the corner. And then they just break my heart again. So what I'm expecting is a really, really strong effort and really competitive. And there's no reason why we can't win it. Reality tells me, Dean, that we won't turn up on Thursday night and it'll be over at half time. If I'm going to go form, that's what's likely to happen.
Yeah, it almost makes more sense to think like that, unfortunately, because that's, recent history suggests, and it's not just recent history, it's been the last 5 years, we've sort of done this. And until it's sort of, we can get the consistency of these performances like we did on the weekend, then you've got to question everything, don't you? So no point doing a one-off. Every dog has its day. So at the end of the day, you've really got to back up last week. Otherwise, what's the point of playing, like you did against Port Adelaide, getting close, and if you're just going to get smashed the next week. So we'll have to wait and see how we go. Any final messages out there, Frank, before I let you go?
No, I don't think so, Dean. I don't think there was anything. Oh, if you haven't caught up with the Tarrant Thomas news, do yourself a favour and Google that.
This can't be good.
You'll get a pleasant laugh. No, it's not good. It's not good, Dean. But it's probably where we all thought that this story was going to head down the path that it's going currently, allegedly, or whatever it is they say. But have a read up on that for Tarrant Thomas fans that haven't caught up with the latest story. But other than that, no, let's. I'm hoping to get out there. I know it's an Essendon home game, but I'm hoping to snare a ticket this week and head out there on Thursday. And hopefully the boys can continue on with that level of effort and give us something positive.
Well, we certainly hope rather than think or believe we can. So that's all we can do. But like we sort of mentioned, it's a hope that kills you sometimes. Well, Frank, it's been a pleasure. We didn't go 98 minutes to commemorate Darcy Tucker being on the field, 98 minutes with 0 touches for tonight, but we were close to an hour. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure I'll chat to you next week.
Thank you very much, Dean. Look forward to it.
Thank you. And thank you to all you listeners as well. I'll try and be back Wednesday evening this week to go through the teams. Give a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your mates and whoever about it. That's it from me. Bye for now and go.